right, we're ready to start a new chapter, and this chapter starts with one-step equations, which are the most simple, and starting with addition and subtraction, which is even more simple than where we're going to be going. By the time you get into 8th grade, you'll be doing quite long. I'll show you some examples in class where if you tried to do it in your head, unless you were a genius, you couldn't. The ones that we do today, they will be simple enough that you can do them in your head. So you're going to be tempted to not want to show your work because it's so easy. You know the answer. But we're trying to learn a new way of writing things so that it follows the algebraic pattern. So let's talk about what our goal is in every algebraic problem, and it's called isolating the variable. So what does that mean? I don't know that that's the term your book uses, but that's a very common term used in algebra. To isolate means to put something all by itself. If that's a person, it means they're really lonesome. Thankfully, variables don't have feelings, so they can't feel sorry for themselves when they're all by themselves. But that is our goal. So we want the x on one side, or any other variable, x, n, a, b, c, or d, any variable that we're trying to solve for needs to be on one side of the equation and everything else on the other. So let's look to see what that looks like. Okay, we have this problem here, and our first step says that we have to find the constant that's on the same side as the variable. Well, we have this constant over here, 32, but it's already isolated, so we know its value, so we leave it alone. However, we have this 18 over here, and it is right next to a variable. It's not attached to the variable, but it's next to the variable. So that's the first thing that we want to do, is to do something so that we can actually get rid of that, and we'll call it a negative 18. We want to get rid of the negative 18 so that the x is all by itself. So how do we get rid of it? That goes to our next step. Our next step is to add its opposite, or you could think of it as doing, it's either the opposite function or the opposite integer. So the opposite of a negative 18 is a positive 18. The opposite of taking away or subtracting 18 is adding 18. And of course, if this was adding 18, then it would be take away 18, just the opposite, whatever the opposite is. All right, now, so we've done that, but we're not ready to, we could obviously in our head know what the value was, but it needs to have one more step that at this point will seem a little bit redundant, but bear with me. All right, step 3. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So remember, we had this 32 equals x minus 18. So if I had put a positive 18 here, or adding 18 here, I have to do the same thing on the other side of the equation. In other words, everything here must be the same, because 18 equals 18. Whatever's on one side of the equation has to equal whatever is on the other side of the equation. All right, so now we've done that, but we need to keep things neat. Algebra can get really sloppy. So we have kind of a standard way of writing, just like in English. You have certain rules for writing paragraphs, writing sentences. There are rules for writing algebra. So that leads us to our very final step for this, which is drawing a line and writing the value of x. So while you're copying this down, I'm going to write our equation as it was when we first started. Excuse me, let me get rid of that. All right, so draw a line and write the value of x. We had its opposite. We did it to both sides, and now we're going to draw a line. That's important because it's much more readable, much more legible if I can tell the difference between the problem and the answer. It's also very important to work down. And you'll see me saying that when we did order of operations. I said work down. It's very important to work down now. So working down, negative 18 and positive 18 is 0. So I'm not going to write anything because this just goes away. In fact, if you just want to cross it out, you can, if that helps. It goes away. Well, the x is still there, so I want to copy that down, and we want to know what x equals. Now it's simply added up 32 and 18. Well, that would be 50. So now I know the value of x, and that's all it is. So I'm going to give you another problem to work on, and you can show me tomorrow. In fact, I'll give you two similar problems, and you can show me tomorrow how you applied these steps to these problems. All right, first problem. We're going to start with our constant. And we'll put our variable here on this side of the equation. And let's say, there you go. Okay, so that looks a little bit different than last time. Remember, we're going to work down, so I'm going to do my next problem beside it instead of below it. This one, though, I am going to have my variable, let's say it's, and this time I'm going to put it over here. And let's make it, there we go. So I've picked some numbers that aren't quite as easy to do in your head. But you should be able to figure out the value of n and b, and make sure you follow the steps, make sure you're working down, draw the line, keep it neat, and show me your work tomorrow. We're done.